All right, so we're diving into chapter 4 of Seeds of Change this time.
Okay.
And this chapter is all about, practical ways to shift from, industrial farming to something more agroecologically sound.
Yeah, this is where the rubber meets the road, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, our listeners are really looking for those hands-on techniques that actually make a difference.
Yeah.
So where do we even begin with something as big as, transitioning a whole farm?
Well, chapter 4 breaks it down into 5 key areas.
Okay.
Diversifying cropping systems.
Okay.
Soil health management. Water management strategies.
Got it.
Integrated pest and disease management, and then finally agroforestry and perennial systems.
Okay, well, let's unpack these one by one.
Sounds good.
Let's start with diversifying cropping systems.
Sure.
I've heard a lot about, moving away from monocultures.
Right.
But what's the real benefit beyond, just being good for the environment?
Well, I mean, think about it. Those vast fields of single crops.
It's like setting out a buffet for pests and diseases.
Oh, that's a good point.
One vulnerability and the whole thing can just collapse.
Yeah.
But if you diversify what you plant, you create a more resilient system. And it's not just about what's above ground either.
So you're talking about the soil.
Exactly.
I'm guessing that means, diverse plants lead to more diverse nutrients.
Right.
Going back into the soil.
Exactly. Diversifying leads to healthier soil. Which means you need less chemical inputs.
It's good for everybody.
Yeah, win-win for your wallet and for the environment.
For sure.
And there's more than just intercropping, too.
Oh, right.
Like the classic example of the Three Sisters method.
Yeah, with the corn, beans, and squash.
Exactly. Corn provides the structure.
Yep.
Beans add nitrogen to the soil, and squash acts as a living mulch.
It's like they were designed to grow together.
Right.
Eh.
It's amazing how nature works.
Yeah.
And then there's also crop rotation.
Oh, yeah, crop rotate. Switching up what's planted each season, so that breaks pest cycles and it helps to replenish the soil.
So it's like giving your land a balanced diet
Exactly.
to keep it healthy and productive.
I like that analogy.
So it's almost like diversifying your, investments. You're spreading the risk, maximizing your returns.
Exactly.
But on a farm level.
Exactly.
I like it.
And don't forget about agroforestry.
Oh, right. Agroforestry.
Bringing trees into the equation.
Yeah.
You get shade, you get windbreaks, and they can even generate some extra income.
The trees themselves.
Exactly, from timber or fruit.
So we're thinking outside the rows, literally.
Yeah.
It's all about smart, efficient farming.
That's the goal.
But let's talk about the soil itself for a second.
Sure.
That feels like a whole world that we need to explore.
Oh, absolutely. Soil is way more than just dirt under our feet.
Right.
It's a living ecosystem.
Okay.
And that's what soil health management is all about.
All right. So let's dive into that then. I've always been curious about compost. Turning waste into fertilizer.
Yeah, like magic.
Yeah.
Compost is incredible for your soil.
Yeah.
It adds organic matter, improves soil structure, and it feeds all those beneficial microorganisms.
So less reliance on, chemical fertilizers.
Exactly. And that's better for the environment and your bottom line.
Makes sense.
And then you've got cover cropping.
Cover cropping, okay.
It's like giving your soil a nice blanket during the off-season.
Okay.
Protects against erosion, and it adds even more organic matter.
So it's sort of like protecting it from the elements.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it can help suppress weeds, too.
Oh, that's a good point.
Less time and money spent on herbicides.
Less chemicals, which is always a good thing.
Always.
But I have to admit, no-till farming always seemed a little counterintuitive.
Yeah, a lot of people think that.
How can you grow anything without tilling the soil?
It seems strange, but no-till is all about respecting the natural processes of the soil. By minimizing disturbance, you keep the soil structure intact and all those microbes happy.
So less disruption means a happier soil.
Happier, more productive.
I like it.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that approach be incredibly labor-intensive, though?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
No-till can require a shift in equipment and management practices.
Okay.
And it might not be suitable for every farm or every climate.
Right.
But the long-term benefits for soil health and water conservation can be significant.
So it sounds like it requires careful planning and adaptation.
It does.
But the payoff could be huge.
Exactly. It's about finding the right balance for your specific context.
Right.
Speaking of balance, we can't forget about water.
Okay, water.
With climate change and increasing water scarcity, efficient water management is more crucial than ever.
Okay, so on to water management strategy.
Right.
Rainwater harvesting seems like a no-brainer to me.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
Catch what nature gives you.
Exactly.
But it's not always common practice. It can be as simple as collecting runoff from rooftops,
Okay.
or as elaborate as creating swales and ponds
Oh, yeah.
to catch and hold water.
To hold the water on the land.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those swales would also help slow down runoff,
Right.
prevent erosion,
Yeah.
and allow that water to soak into the ground.
Right. So it's all about mimicking natural water cycles.
Exactly. Working with nature's rhythms.
Like the Quinault irrigation systems we talked about.
Oh, yeah.
That was fascinating.
A testament to human ingenuity.
Yeah.
Finding solutions that work with nature rather than against it.
And there are modern approaches too, like drip irrigation,
Right.
delivering water right to the root.
Exactly. It's all about making every drop count.
Especially in areas with limited water resources.
Absolutely.
But even with the best water management, there's still the issue of, pests and diseases.
Of course.
What's Chapter 4's take on handling those?
It's funny you should mention that, because the chapter cautions against reaching for the chemical spray bottle as a first response.
So it's not just about, killing every bug or every weed.
It's about a smarter, more balanced approach.
Okay.
Integrated pest and disease management, or IPM.
Okay.
IPM. It's like building a strong immune system for your farm.
Interesting.
It starts with prevention.
Okay.
Choosing resistant crop varieties,
Mm-hmm.
building healthy soils that can naturally fend off diseases,
Right.
using crop rotation to disrupt pest cycles.
So minimizing the problem before it even starts.
Exactly.
But what happens when prevention isn't enough?
Well, that's when monitoring becomes crucial.
Okay.
You're carefully observing what's happening in your fields
Right.
and only intervening when absolutely necessary.
So you're not just spraying blindly.
No.
Okay.
You start with the least harmful methods.
Okay.
Like introducing beneficial insects.
Oh, right. Nature's own pest control.
Exactly. Or using targeted mechanical methods rather than broad spectrum chemical warfare.
So it's like choosing targeted surgery over carpet bombing.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
The beauty of ITM is that it's not just about reducing chemical use.
Right.
It's about creating a healthier, more resilient ecosystem on your farm.
So it's not just about protecting the crops, but about, fostering a whole web of life
That's a great way to put it.
that contributes to a healthier farm overall.
Exactly.
And that leads us perfectly to the final piece of the puzzle,
Agroforestry.
agroforestry and perennial systems.
Yes.
This is where we go beyond thinking of farms as just, rows of crops,
Mm-hmm.
and we start to envision something more diverse.
A more multi-layered landscape.
I've always loved the idea of integrating trees and perennials into the farming system.
Me too.
It just feels so much more in tune with nature.
Absolutely.
So how do we do that?
Well, there are so many ways. You've
Right.
got alley cropping,
Alley cropping.
where rows of trees are planted alongside crops.
Okay.
They provide shade windbreaks and even improve soil fertility with their leaf litter.
And then there's silvopasture,
Yes.
which you touched on earlier.
Combining trees, forage, and livestock.
Yeah, it's amazing how beneficial that can be for all three.
Right. The trees provide shade for the animals.
Yeah.
The animals help manage the vegetation and fertilize the soil.
It's a beautiful example of, a system where every element works together.
In harmony.
And then you have even more specialized approaches like forest farming,
Yes.
where crops are cultivated under the canopy of a forest.
I've seen some amazing examples of that.
Me too.
Growing mushrooms, ginseng, medicinal herbs.
That's like stepping into a secret garden.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we can learn so much from nature's designs.
And apply those lessons
Uh.
to create more sustainable farming systems.
Exactly.
So we've covered a lot of ground here,
We have.
but I think it's clear that each of these 5 areas plays a vital role in transitioning to a more agroecological approach.
Absolutely.
Like we've laid out all the pieces of the puzzle,
Yeah.
and now we need to see how they fit together
Yeah.
in the real world.
In the real world.
That's what we'll be exploring in part 2.
I'm excited.
We'll delve into some real world case studies
Very excited.
that bring these principles to life.
It's good. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
All right, so let's see these agroecological practices
Okay.
in action, in the real world.
Yeah, you got it. Chapter 4 has some fascinating case studies that really show how these principles, actually translate into tangible results.
So where do we begin?
Well, remember how we talked about soil health
Yeah.
being the foundation of a thriving farm?
Right, the bedrock.
Exactly. One of the most compelling examples is the Rodale Institute's farming systems trial.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
They've been comparing organic and conventional farming
Side by side
for decades, right?
since 1981.
Wow.
And the data they've collected is just incredible.
So what kind of differences are we talking about?
Well, think higher levels of organic matter,
Okay.
greater microbial activity, better water retention. So these organic systems are just more resilient,
Yeah,
especially with climate change,
exactly. They're more resilient to droughts and extreme weather.
which is becoming more and more important.
It is, but a lot of people think that going organic means sacrificing productivity.
Right? Yields.
Exactly. But that's a common misconception
Okay.
that this trial actually debunks.
Really?
Yeah, after a transition period.
Okay.
The organic systems actually matched or even exceeded the yields
Of the conventional
of the
system.
conventional systems.
Wow. So we don't have to choose between, healthy food and a healthy planet.
We don't.
That's good news.
It is.
It's inspiring to see that kind of long-term research
Yeah,
challenging the conventional wisdom.
absolutely.
Okay, so what about water management?
Okay, water management.
Does Chapter 4 have any interesting case studies for that?
It does. Let's travel to Israel.
Israel.
Yeah, they're known for their innovative approach to water conservation.
Interesting, because you don't normally think of a desert region
Right.
as a model for water efficiency.
Exactly, but necessity is the mother of invention, right?
That's true.
Facing water scarcity, they became leaders in water-saving technologies
Like a drip irrigation.
like drip irrigation, delivering water right to the plant roots.
Exactly.
But are they doing anything else?
Oh yeah, it's just one piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
They also use treated wastewater for irrigation,
Wow.
and they carefully monitor soil moisture levels to avoid overwatering.
So they're making the most of every drop.
Exactly. They've created a closed-loop system.
That's smart.
What kind of impact has this had on their agricultural output?
Yeah, I'm curious.
It's impressive they've significantly increased their agricultural output
Wow.
while reducing their water consumption,
That's what we need.
working smarter, not harder.
I like it.
But high-tech solutions aren't always feasible,
Right.
especially for smaller farms in developing countries.
So does Chapter 4 have any examples of more low-tech sustainable practices?
Absolutely. Let's go to Asia.
And look at the resurgence of rice fish farming.
Rice fish farming.
It's a really beautiful example of an integrated system.
How did that work?
It involves raising fish in flooded rice paddies.
Okay.
And the fish help to control pests and weeds naturally.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, it reduces the need for chemical inputs.
So it's good for the environment.
And it's good for the farmer, too.
Okay, how so?
Well, the fish waste acts as a natural fertilizer
For the rice.
for the rice. So the farmer gets multiple sources of food and income.
Makes sense.
And the ecosystem benefits from that symbiotic relationship.
So it's a win-win.
It is a win-win.
Okay, let's talk pests for a minute.
Okay.
I remember reading about the push-pull method in Africa.
Oh, yeah.
How does that work?
That's a great example
Okay.
of working with nature to manage pests.
Okay, so what are we working with?
Well, it's being used to control stem borer pests in maize crops.
Stem burrs.
It's a clever combination of intercropping and companion planting.
Okay, so how does it work?
Farmers intercrop the maize with desmodium.
Desmodium.
It's a leguminous plant that repels the stem borers.
Okay.
And then around the edges of the field, they plant Napier grass,
Okay.
which attracts the pests away from the maize.
So the desmodium pushes the pests away,
Pushes them away.
and the Napier grass pulls them in.
Pulls them in.
So it's a natural pest control system.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. Wow, that's fascinating.
And the desmodium also improves soil fertility.
Oh, wow, bone
That's
blowing.
by fixing nitrogen.
So it's helping on multiple levels.
Exactly. So these are just a few examples.
Okay.
But Chapter 4 is full of inspiring stories
Yeah.
of farmers all over the world who are proving that these agroecological practices can work.
So we can grow food in a way that's good for both people and the planet.
Absolutely.
But scaling these practices up to a global level, that feels like a huge challenge.
It is. You're absolutely right.
So how do we bridge that gap?
Yeah. How do we go from these inspiring examples
Right.
to widespread adoption?
What does Chapter 4 suggest? That's what we'll be exploring in Part 3.
Okay.
It's going to get really interesting
I'm intrigued.
as we delve into the potential and the challenges of scaling up agroecology.
All right. I'm ready for it. All right. So let's talk about, scaling this up.
Okay.
We've seen that it works,
Mm-hmm.
but how do we actually go from these inspiring examples
Right.
to like a widespread transformation
Yeah.
of the whole food system?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And Chapter 4 definitely acknowledges the challenges.
So what are those challenges?
Well, for a lot of farmers,
Yeah.
the initial investment can be a big barrier.
Okay.
Transitioning to agroecological practices
Mhm.
often means investing in new equipment,
Right.
new seeds training.
Yeah.
And that can be tough, especially for farmers who are already...
Working on tight margins.
Exactly.
But is it just about money?
It's not just about the finances.
Okay.
There's also a knowledge gap.
Okay.
A lot of farmers have been practicing conventional agriculture.
For their whole lives.
Yeah. For generations.
Yeah.
And changing those ingrained habits
Yeah.
can be really daunting.
So it's almost like you have to unlearn
Mm-hmm.
the old ways
You do.
and embrace a whole new way of thinking.
It's a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
It's about seeing your farm as an interconnected ecosystem,
Not just a factory.
not just a factory churning out commodities.
Yeah.
And that requires a different set of skills and knowledge.
And even if individual farmers are on board,
Mm-hmm.
there's still the larger system to contend with.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
The current agricultural system is heavily geared towards industrial agriculture.
Yeah, with all the subsidies.
The subsidies, the
Yeah.
policies,
Yeah.
the market structures that favor those large-scale monocultures.
So it's not just about changing practices.
It's about changing the whole playing field.
That's a big task.
It is a huge challenge.
But does Chapter 4 offer any solutions?
It does. It also highlights some emerging solutions and opportunity.
Okay. I'm ready for some good news. Where are we seeing signs of positive change?
One of the most encouraging trends is the growing consumer demand
Yep.
for sustainably produced food.
People are starting to care more about where their food comes from.
They're becoming more aware of the impact
Yeah.
on the environment and their health.
Yeah.
And they're voting with their wallets.
So consumer power can really drive change.
It absolutely can.
And as that demand grows,
Mhm.
it creates more opportunities for farmers
Exactly.
who are already using these practices.
Right. And this consumer pressure
Yeah.
is starting to influence policymakers as well.
So we're seeing some shifts at the government level too.
We are. There's a growing recognition that the current system is just not sustainable.
Okay.
And so we're starting to see more investment in research,
Okay.
education incentives for agroecological practices.
That's encouraging.
The tide is slowly turning.
And we can't forget about the power of education
Oh, absolutely.
and knowledge sharing.
Groups like the Rodale Institute are doing incredible work to advance the science and practice of agroecology
It's about giving farmers the information and the resources they need.
to make that transition.
Yeah.
And it's not just about top-down education either.
Right.
There's also a growing movement of farmer-to-farmer networks.
I love that.
Yeah, farmers are sharing their experiences and learning from each other.
That peer-to-peer learning is so valuable.
It is. It's a powerful force for change.
So it sounds like this movement is gaining momentum,
It is.
and it's driven by people from all walks of life.
It is farmers, consumers, researchers, policymakers.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Chapter 4,
Okay.
what's the one thing our listeners should take away?
I think the most important thing is to start somewhere,
Okay.
no matter how small.
So if you're a farmer,
Experiment with one of the practices we've talked about.
okay.
If you're a consumer,
Yeah.
make conscious choices about the food you buy.
Right.
Support your local farmers market.
Mm-hmm.
Look for organic labels.
Okay.
Join a CSA.
And use your voice.
Yes.
Talk to your friends and family.
Advocate for policies that support sustainable agriculture.
Spread the word.
Spread the word.
It's been an amazing journey exploring this chapter with you.
It has.
What stood out to you?
You know, I think it's the reminder that agroecology isn't just a set of practices.
It's a way of thinking.
It's a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
It's about seeing the interconnectedness of everything.
Working with nature.
Working with nature instead of against it.
Creating a food system that nourishes everyone.
Well said.
It's a vision worth striving for.
It is.
So let's keep learning,
Yes.
keep experimenting,
Keep experimenting.
and keep working together to make it a reality.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time.
Stay curious.